Thanks for your time. Some fierce criticism there by Peter Dutton of the government. Let's start on the position when it comes to a future Palestinian state. He says that the foreign minister has damaged our international reputation. He says the government and the prime minister have allowed anti-Semitism to rise in this country. What do you say to that?
Look, I think to start on anti-Semitism, it's absolutely clear that anti-Semitism has risen in this country, as it has around the world, and that is extremely frightening and concerning to my community. I think the Opera House was traumatising, frankly, for the community to see that happen. But as you know, I speak to my community almost every day about the concerns about sending their kids to school. I speak a lot to university students about this. So I think that we as a country, all of us are responsible for really being very clear that there is no place, for anti-Semitism or any type of exclusion or hate in this country. I came this morning from a citizenship ceremony, and one of the things I say in the minister's message is our diversity is our greatest strength, and we absolutely need to universally, collectively stand for that.
Do you agree with Peter Dutton that the Prime Minister has made Australia unsafe for the Jewish community?
Look, I think to be honest, that is extreme. Those are extreme words, but I do think that it's not. I think that everybody, and there's definitely some bad actors out there and some people who have extreme views, and we need to take a stronger line on. And I think certainly some of the imams in Greater Western Sydney and who have said some extreme things are part of the concerns that I have in terms of anti-Semitism. So I think that is absolutely right, that I'm concerned about anti-Semitism, and so is my whole community. But I really don't want to politicise this, and I think the politics of it makes it worse. We just need to focus on what can we collectively do. We need to make sure we've got the right hate laws, the right laws against doxing, and we collectively need to speak up and stand up in politicians and individually and say this is not acceptable in our country. And I don't think the politics and playing politics on this is very helpful from any side.
And your reaction to Penny Wong's speech, where she raised the prospect of, or the international discussion that's happening, and floated the prospect of Australia potentially recognising the state of Palestine before the negotiated final settlement with Israel?
Look, I've read her speech in detail, and I've listened to what she said yesterday, and I'm still very unclear on what she's actually saying in terms of recognition of a Palestinian state. And I've always supported a two-state solution in the Middle East, and I think in these difficult times, I think all of us think about how do we get to peace, and how can we have long-term security and safety, for the Jewish, for the Israeli people, and for the Palestinian people. So I will continue to support that. But it's very unclear what she's actually saying. Is she saying that, we're going to recognise unilaterally? Is she saying that, this is in some period of time? I'm not sure. What I hear from my community, my Jewish community, is like, well, what they're most concerned about right now is what is going on in the Middle East, and how do we bring an end to that violence? How do we get the hostages home? How do we make sure that we can actually stop that the violence over there and come to peace? How do we force Hamas to lay down its arms? And so that's really the focus of the community. So most of my community, I think, really does support a two-state solution very, very strongly. But this is a question of, well, how does this fit in? And, to what we're all seeking right now is firstly an end to the violence.
On the comments made by the Prime Minister this morning, I spoke to him earlier on the program, and he said that I asked him, do the comments by Joe Biden on Julian Assange reflect comments being made privately as part of the negotiations, the talks on trying to have him returned home? He said in response to that question that he is, quote, increasingly optimistic, unquote. It sounds, Allegra Spender, like this could be resolved sooner rather than later. You'd welcome that?
Absolutely. And I think many of my community do as well. He's been locked up for a very long time, and I think it is time to bring him home.
On the issue of a future made in Australia, can Australia compete? You're an economist. Can we compete when it comes to manufacturing?
Look, I think there are areas in this green transition where Australia has a unique competitive advantage. One of those is green iron. So, we have the iron ore and we've got the sunshine and the wind. So if we can make that work well, we could have a really unique opportunity there. I think another area is elements of solar panel manufacturing. So there are areas where Australia can really lead the world, and I support actually investment in areas where Australia can really lead the world. But what I also want to make sure is that every single dollar that we spend is spent wisely, and at the same time we have the other, we work on the other policies and the other, things like industrial relations and procurement policies and regulation policies, to make sure that, our businesses across the country can thrive, as well as in these specific green industries.
Allegra Spender, thanks as always. We'll have to talk again soon. I know you want to talk about Ken Henry's comments about
I always want to
tax
talk to
inequity
Kieran.
between the generations. Let's talk tax next time. Hopefully see you soon.
Will do.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Kieran.